Susan Polgar lives and works in New York City. She sees the world in a very unusual way. Susan has the brain of a genius, perfectly adapted to her single lifelong obsession. Susan is the first female chess grandmaster. But she wasn't born with her brilliant brain. It was created by an extraordinary childhood. Susan is the living proof of an amazing theory that any ordinary child can be turned into a genius. It's Sunday morning, and New York's Greenwich Village is the setting for a showdown. Playing white, Susan Polgar. Playing black, Paul Truong, a former US champion at a supercharged form of chess. Blitz. Each player must play the entire game in just 60 seconds. It's a high-speed demonstration of chess-playing genius.
You're in total control of your own destiny. Here, it's your brain versus the opponent.
By understanding Susan's brilliant brain, we can unlock the potential of our own. We can understand how people make life or death decisions faster than a supercomputer, or perform miracles of memory in their everyday jobs, and how in the battle of the sexes, the female brain can outmaneuver the male.
I really believe that if you put your mind to it, and you really want it, you can achieve it, whatever it is.
Susan's brain is an unstoppable force, and her opponent has run out of time. The latest in a long line of distinguished victims. Susan has competed on equal terms with the greatest names in chess, like Garry Kasparov, Anatoly Karpov, and even the great Bobby Fischer. But Susan's genius is no accident of birth. She was once an ordinary 4-year-old whose life was transformed by a unique education. Susan Polgar grew up a world away from New York City. In the late 1960s, Hungary still languished in the iron grip of the Soviet Union. For the ordinary citizens of Budapest, daily life was a grim struggle to make ends meet. The future queen of the chessboard was hardly born a princess.
That's the street I was born in, where I used to live for the first 10 years of my life. Yeah, wow. The house is still here. The closest side that you see was my room, and that's where I first learned to play chess. And then the second room was where my parents were sleeping and was kind of a living room. It brings back a lot of memories.
If Susan's home was ever so humble, her father was a man with a unique vision. A trained psychologist, Laszlo Polgar had made a deep study of the childhood origins of genius. The archetypal example was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Already composing at the age of 5, he seemed to be the classic case of a child born with special gifts. But Laszlo noted that Mozart's father Leopold, himself an accomplished musician, gave his son early and invaluable schooling in his craft. Laszlo decided that specialized training was more important than natural talent, and he had an astonishing plan that would put his theory to the test. When Zsuzsa, or Susan, was born in April 1969, the Polgar family experiment was underway. Her father had already written a book called Bringing Up Genius, and it said that genius was not born, but made.
It reads here a quote: a zseni egyenlő munka plusz szerencsés körülmények, which means a genius equals work and fortunate circumstances.
By fortunate circumstances, Laszlo meant the happy home that he and his wife Clara would provide, and the hard work would be guaranteed by schooling Susan himself.
The father believed that the potential of most children is not used optimally. He felt that there is not much I would get out of going to school daily.
Laszlo planned to train Susan in mathematics, but she chose her own future by a happy accident.
One day, unexpectedly, in a search for a new toy, I opened a cabinet and a chess set fell out. And I asked my mom, "What is it?" And she said, "Oh, this is a chess set, although I can't help you much with it because I don't know how to play with it, but wait until Daddy comes home and he'll teach you with pleasure."
There was no history of brilliant chess players in the Polgar family. Laszlo himself was strictly an amateur. But he was convinced he could train his daughter to be a genius at anything, as long as she was a willing student.
My father strongly believed that it could have been any other field and the very same methods could have been used. First of all, it's very important for the child to love the specific field, which in our case was chess. And then the rest comes easy.
Easy, perhaps, if Susan had chosen music or science. But devoting her childhood to chess made the quest for genius much harder, for one reason. In the early 1970s, chess was totally dominated by men. Some of the world's best players believed that the female brain just couldn't cope with the game. A little girl was about to prove them wrong. These are the gardens of Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire, home to one of the biggest hedge mazes in the world. This type of navigation problem is a well-known battleground of the sexes. Men never ask for directions. They think they're better than women at getting from A to B. Professor Peter MacLeod has come to find out whether, just sometimes, they might be right.
There are many stereotypes about the differences between the way that men and women solve problems, and although some of these stereotypes may be based on prejudices and biases, when you find the same stereotypes appear in all cultures and all over the world, you can't help thinking there must be something in them.
10 boys and 10 girls are trying to reach the statue at the center of the maze. But the first objective is a wooden bridge that gives an overview of the layout. This is where MacLeod and his maze runners will gather their thoughts.
How are you doing?
It's really, really hard.
Do you recognise any of it?
Well,
Which are the bits where you've been?
I went round that far side with the zigzaggy bit.
Yep.
I went up here. I remember most of the turns that I've been to.
The boys seem to be looking at the big picture. They have a strong memory of where they've been and where they need to go.
I'm just trying to keep going in.